I wish laptops like this existed when I was a student. Performance, power, and portability all housed inside a sleek and understated design that is really light, under 2 kilograms in fact, which is quite rare for gaming laptops.
This is Cyberpunk 2077 running flawlessly on an Nvidia GeForce RTX 5070 laptop GPU. Complete with 8GB of VRAM, leveraging DLSS 4 technology, this game could smoothly run at 180 FPS.
And it's not just the GPU that's impressive. The AMD Ryzen AI 9 HX370 CPU packs 12 cores, 24 threads, and a clock speed of 5.1 GHz, creating a powerful CPU and GPU combo ideal for 3D modeling, creative tasks, gaming, and also the versatility you need from one machine.
Even though it is thin, you don't lose out on key features. Connectivity and ports are plentiful, 3 USB Type-A's, Ethernet, HDMI 2.1 output, a headphone jack, and even a single USB Type-C. You have everything you need for either external drives or a bunch of gaming peripherals. Upgradability on the laptop is straightforward. You simply remove the screws to get access to the rear backplate, and then inside you can upgrade various internal components. This laptop is spec'd with 32GB of RAM, but you can see you do have access to the sticks, and there's also 2 NVMe SSD slots. You can purchase this laptop fully spec'd out with up to 2TB of SSD storage, but you can obviously upgrade these later down the line if you desire to. Next to these NVMe SSD slots is the internal battery. This is a 76 mAh battery, claiming to have a capacity of up to 14 hours of battery life, and has a fast charge feature with just 30 minutes of charge time, getting you up to 50%.
But now let's talk about performance and break down some benchmark numbers from the AERO X16.
So let's jump into Hogwarts Legacy. This game by default was set to Ultra on absolutely everything. Game looked beautiful and also played really well. I did use DLSS frame generation with a 4x multiplier to really push the frame capabilities of this laptop, and I was getting a very consistent 185 to 210 frames per second, just depending on the overall environment complexity, whether I was outside or in a slightly smaller environment within the Hogwarts castle.
You do have the option inside of the Gmate software to switch between different modes for the laptop to optimize both battery life and also performance. There's some fan curves that you can choose between, balanced, performance, and also turbo. Of course, in turbo mode, the laptop does get very, very loud in terms of the max output of the fans. So my personal favorite was performance mode. This was a nice balance point between it ramping down and only ramping up when it was needed. Most of the time, it was fairly quiet.
Next, let's talk about Counter-Strike 2. This achieved 250 frames per second very consistently. I must admit, I did expect much higher frames from this game. I had everything set to absolutely low. Across the board, resolution was still max output of the onboard display, 1440p, and I thought we would have maybe exceeded 300, maybe even 400 frames. But maybe my expectations are incorrect. I used to play Counter-Strike a lot, CSGO in particular, but obviously the new graphics engine on CSGO 2 maybe is slightly different to what I'm personally used to from performance back in the day, and it's a little bit more intense than you would first assume. This game does of course support Nvidia Reflex with boost mode, so the render latency was very low and super responsive, so you're very competitive at that frames per second that it was outputting.
On the topic of Nvidia's Reflex technology, 50 series powered laptops will support Nvidia Reflex 2 that will be launching later this year.
Cyberpunk 2077 is a great example of leveraging these newer technologies available from Nvidia. DLSS 4 is their latest frame generation software that essentially allows you to add a performance multiplier to your GPU. In the graphics settings, you have the option to do a 2x, 3x, or even 4x frame multiplier. Essentially, it will create AI-generated frames in between the real ones that are rendered on the graphics card, allowing you to have way higher performance from lower spec machines. For comparison, with DLSS frame generation disabled, Cyberpunk at ray-traced overdrive mode was capable of around 27 to 30 frames per second. Then when we enable DLSS 4 with a 4x frame gen, this boosts it up to a pretty consistent 85 to 90 FPS. Now, of course, you can dial this in with medium graphic settings, high graphic settings, or even on the lower end to find the sweet spot that works for you. But DLSS 4 allows you to still keep those important graphic settings that you want for the most cinematic experience without sacrificing the most important thing, which is the frames per second and the smoothness of the overall gameplay.
Overall, the AERO X16 I think is a brilliant laptop. It's lightweight, it's thin, it's got all the performance you need, especially for gaming on the go. You're not expecting to 4K 120 FPS. Plus, it also has a large 16-inch display that's 165 Hz with a 3 millisecond response time. Especially with DLSS 4, you're getting so much more frames per second than in the past, so it's nice to have that high refresh rate panel.
There is also a built-in webcam above the display that leverages the Nvidia broadcast features. This is some AI tools that allow you to blur out the background, switch out the background, enhance the lighting if the conditions aren't exactly perfect. It has an MUX switch for intelligently switching between the dedicated GPU and also the integrated GPU on the CPU, helping you increase the overall battery life from the gaming laptop, which is super smart depending on what task you are currently doing.
And it works great when you're just doing casual tasks like maybe productivity, Word documents, even Zoom call style things, lectures, meetings, and so on. And then when you actually jump into tasks that need the Nvidia GPU, it will switch to that and then obviously be a little bit more resource hungry on the battery life.
And all of this is just set up straight out of the box because of that Gmate software. Everything just integrates directly into that hub. You can toggle all these settings on and off inside of there, and it just all syndicates across the laptop, which just makes it really easy.
If you want to learn more about the AERO X16, all the relevant links will be down in the video description. But if you want to see how this laptop compares to one of last year's models, you should check out this video next, because if you like this, you'll like that.